Alright, so this value exercise is all about control. And instead of using your pencil like you're writing, you're going to hold it as a drawing tool. You got to have a nice regular pencil, not a mechanical pencil. You want to use the side of the pencil point here. And what you're doing the first step is just creating a 5-step value scale. So if I think of my pencil as a value scale, 5 being the darkest, 4, 3 is the middle value, 2, and the 1 value. So I'm going to hold my pencil in those places when I go to apply the values in that area. Now the rubric says you want to have a nice smooth transition in tone. You want to see differences between the different values. So when I hold my pencil for the first one here, I'm going to go in and put my fingertip at the point to create the most amount of pressure. I'm going to use the side of the pencil and neat and carefully fill this box with a dark 5 value. Alright, so I'm finishing keeping the same amount of pressure on in this box. You notice that the values are not linear. If I were shading this way, if I was holding my pencil like a writing tool, it would be very linear, and I don't want the linear quality. You want a smooth tone. So I'm going to continue with that 5 value, fill that box in all the way nice and neat and clean, and then when I get to the 4 value, I'm going to move my finger back a little bit. And now just come in with the 4 value and a little less pressure and apply the value for the 4, which is a 3/4 tone, all the way through that box. Move my finger back again and create the 3 value. And if I notice these are too similar, I can come back and add a little bit more pressure into the 4 value, so I still have some difference between the 5, the 4, and of course the 3. Moving my hand, see my finger? Moving my hand back to the 3 value for that middle tone, filling the box nice and neat. Move my finger back again for the 2 value. Fill that box with the smooth 2 value, and then move my finger all the way back to the eraser and create that 1 value, which is as light as my pencil can go with the amount of pressure. So what I end up with is a nice smooth value scale that has representations of 5 different tones. Within the second section, you see the numbers on these shapes. They've been flattened out where you see a line in between the values. So I'm going to look up here and see whatever these numbers are. I'm going to use the corresponding number in here and apply it here. So it says use the guide on the left, which is this, to fill in the drawing on the right. So you're not doing it in here, you're just using that as the guide. So on the cone, I can see I've got a 2, 1, 3. So I look up here at my 2 value, and then I come in and apply that 2 value. I'm going to put my pencil down here at the 2 value, near the back, look at that value, and apply that 2 value in there nice and neat. The 1 value is in the next one, so I'm going to use the 1 value. 3 value is next, so I'm moving my finger to the middle of the pencil to get the middle value. I'm looking up here and I'm comparing to make sure that I have the right value. And then a 5 value, I'm going to move my finger down a little bit and carefully get in that little space right there and put the 5 value in there, and then just lessen the pressure for the last one on the 4 value. Alright, so fill that in nice and neat and clean. Now as I work my way across, you'll notice here that the values on the top of this says 1 to 2. When you're filling in, again, you always want to fill in with the values following the contours of the surface. So here, I'm going to put a 1 value in, holding my pencil all the way to the back, put a 1 value in, and then increase pressure over here to match the 2 value that I have above. So it creates a smooth gradation or a smooth transition from a 1 value to a 2 value. On the 2, 1, 3, 5, 4, okay, again, 2, 1, 3, 5, 4, I'm looking up here and referring. And if I look at the cast shadows, I have a 4 value and a 3 value, so I need to make a transition from a 4 to a 3 there. So I'm going to put my finger down here at the 4 value, so it's going to go from a 4, and then slide my hand back on my pencil and create a 3 value. If you wonder why the 4 value is up against the sphere here and a 3 value up against the cube here, the reason is the 3 value here is not as dark because it's further away from the light source. The light source is coming from this side. So it's going to be a 4 to a 3 and then a 3 to a 2 out there. So what you end up with is a nice smooth representation of all of those values in that space. Third section, using the same numeric guide as above, each of the forms put the appropriate values in. So I'm using this guide again, and I'm looking at my values that I created at the top. Now I want the gradation to be smooth, nice and smooth. So where I start in here with the 2 value, I've got my finger towards the back. I'm still holding my pencil appropriately. And I'm going to put the 2 value in with the side of the pencil. And then it becomes a 1 value. So I'm moving the 1 value in, and I'm also following the contour of the object surface. So I'm going to transition these values and create gradation. So from the 2 to the 1, maybe you need to darken the 2 just a little bit. Create that 1 value right there. And now as it goes from a 2 to a 1 to a 3, I need to do something between the 1 and the 3 to have that transition. So I'm going to go 1, and then I'm going to make a small 2 value and then the 3. So from my 1 value here, into a 2, into a 3, so I'll move my finger up a little bit on the pencil to create my 3 value there. And then it jumps to a 5. So I'm going to have to make a 3 into a 4, and then into a 5. I also need to follow the contour. So as I work my way across, it's a 4 value in here, or I'm sorry, 5 value in here, and then a 4 value. This is all about learning to control the pencil the way I need it. Now when I get to these, I want to do the same thing. So I have a 2, 1, 3, 5, 4, which means I have to add and subtract pressure across this surface to go 2, transition to a 1, transition to a 3, so I have to do 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. All right? Same thing here, 1 to a 2 value there. When you do the sphere, this needs to look like a sphere. So when I start off on the sphere, I'm going to start off with that 1 value in this area. But I'm not going to do it based on those wedge shapes. I'm going to do it with a circular movement in that one area here. So I'm starting off with a 1 value with a circular shape. And then as I work my way down, I'm going to increase pressure. So I go into my 2 value here, and then I can move my finger up a little bit and create the 3 value in here. And then that 3 value transitions down here into a 4 value. Now I need to make this sphere look circular. So as I increase pressure on my way down to the 5s, I'm going to curve the line or curve the shading technique to create the sphere to make it appear rounded. And increase pressure as I go. I got my 3 value there, got my 4 value here. Down here I've got the 5 value, so I'm transitioning from the 4 into the 5 and maintain that circular shape as I go around. Of course the cast shadows are going to be similar, so what I end up with is a nice fully shaded representation of those 4 geometric shapes. You can see the highlight area, you can see the gradation from the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got the 5 into a 4, I've got the 3 into a 2, 1 to a 2, and the 2, 1, 3, 4, 5, 4. So I have a nice smooth representation of all of those shapes with accurate depth and dimension. The idea behind what we did here is important because of the smooth transition that you want in this example. When you get to the back page, you'll see contour lines, scribble or scumbled lines, hatching, cross-hatching, and stippling. In the first section where it says contour lines, we're talking about smooth contour shading. Since this is just a flat contour, I'm going to have you do a smooth shade. So it's similar to what we did on the first page, but now you need to show the transitions. You notice there's no gap between the values. All right, so on that section, you're just going to start, and I'm just going to turn my paper. I'm going to hold my pencil as I demonstrated before. Zoom in a little bit. And create a nice dark value in there. Again, this is all about control. Obviously, I want to go back and carefully fill in up to the edge of the box. So I want to maintain that accurate value all the way across. And then as I get to this break, I'm going to lessen the pressure a little bit. I'll move my finger back a little bit. And then I'll put the 4 value in all the way across. Oh, it looks a little bit light, so I'll just add a little bit more pressure. And then I'll get to the 3 value. Again, I'm moving my finger back. So as I get to the 3 value, I just lessen the pressure. And then again, 2 to a 1. So I'm just going to transition that all the way across so I have a nice, smooth transition in value all the way across the surface. Now, if you see scribble or scumbled lines, what I recommend you do now is, since these are textural, I want you to create texture. So scribble. Make a bunch of figure 8s with heavier pressure. You see how I'm holding the pencil now like a writing tool. All right, so I'm filling this. I don't necessarily on this one have to fill all the way to the edge of the box. I'm just doing these tight little figure 8s here. And then as I get to this line, I can't jump now and then lessen the pressure and do a 4 value. I need to show the transition. So when I'm here with the darker 5 closer together, as I get to here, I'm going to lessen the pressure, create the 4 value, and I'm looking at it here and I can see that I'm still pretty accurate and similar. And then I get to the 3 value, I'm just lessening the pressure, and then I will continue that all the way here to the number 1 value. Okay? Hatching. This is textural again, so I'm going to make sure that my pencil's nice and sharp, and I'm going to have lines going straight up and down here, closer together to create the 5 value. I'm adding more pressure. And I can't skip, so I've got to now lessen the pressure. If I see that they're too close, I can come back and darken this. So I put my 4 values in. I'm rotating my pencil point so I get the sharp point back. Lines are getting a little bit further apart. I'm matching the value that I have above it. And then again, same thing. 3 values. A little bit less pressure, and so on and so forth. Okay? So you want to see, as you make your way across there, darker lines closer together, and then by the end, you're going to have very, very few lines that are further apart. Okay? So again, that's textural. Cross-hatching. If you look here, same thing. I'm going 2 different directions. So I could do small areas of value with more pressure to create the cross-hatching. And as I transition, I'm going to lessen the pressure. Same thing, start to create it with fewer lines in between, matching the values as I go all the way. And of course, as I work my way over, lessen the pressure. Lines are a little bit further apart. And then transition that to an area where I've got very few lines and the pressure is really, really light. Now with the stippling, you can see what we have this box here, and that box has a dark to a light transition done with a series of dots. I'd like you to put underneath of your portfolio, or I'd like you to put this on top of your portfolio as you're doing this, because nothing's worse than hearing 20 of this thing happening. That's annoying, isn't it? Imagine 20 people doing it. So, have your portfolio underneath to soften the sound a little bit, and then in here, just use your pencil and create more lines. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Or I'm sorry, use more dots in the darker area. And you see how I'm not stuffing this thing like, hold it just with the tip of your fingers. And one little trick with stippling is if you're trying to create a really dark area and you say, man, that's a lot of dots to make a dark area, you can use the scumbling technique or the scribble technique here. And if you do really, really tight figure 8s, really small, tight figure 8s, See how that looks very similar to that? Some of those irregularities in those lines create the look of a stippled value. Now, of course, as I work my way off of that, I need to use stippling to create that blended tone. And then, of course, as I work my way across, I'm going to have fewer dots with a good transition in value. All right. Now, the last step. Use value to correctly shade the sphere based on the different light source directions. In this case, the light source is coming from the top left. Remember to use smooth directional contour shading. Good control in creating the tones. Include highlight, light, shadow, reflected light, and cast shadow. So if this sphere is worth 5 points, I need to have all of those areas. I have 0 value for the highlight. I have light, which is the 1s and 2 values. I have shadow, which is the 3s and 4s and 5 values in here. I have reflected light, which is the light that's going to bounce back off the surface of the table onto the bottom edge opposite the light source. And then I have the cast shadow. And again, the cast shadow is representative of where the light source is. I've got about a 3 value out here, 4 value here, and it transitions out, okay, as it gets further from the light. So when you start on that sphere, again, hold the pencil this way and give yourself that area of highlight first. So light source is hitting here. So I'm using the side of the pencil and I'm creating a 0 value. And right around it, I'm creating my 1 value. Now I'm going to continue that. If I wanted to, I could use the side of the pencil and develop a 1 value over the whole sphere. But as I do that, again, I need to follow, see the movement of the pencil? I need to follow the contour of the shape. So I'll work my way out from this, and what's going to happen is I'll increase pressure as I get down towards the darkest area, which would be here. All right, so the 5 value would be in here. But I really want to take my time on this section so that I'm creating a very, very accurate representation of that shaded sphere, so that at the end it looks like a shaded sphere, highlight being a 0 value, 1s, 2s, and 3s, 4s and 5s, and then the reflected light is going to be somewhere in the 3 and 4, and then a 5 again here, and then accurate cast shadow below the sphere. All right? That's it. It's just that simple. So again, finish the front page, and then while you're finishing that front page, make sure that you have that. Why is that freezing? I wanted it to stop.